Darksiders gave players the opportunity to take control of war, a living engine of destruction in a quest to save the world by killing the overlord of hell. But was it any good? We take a look at this classic of biblical proportions. Darksiders stars War, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, as the main character, so obviously you can expect a lot of fighting. It's not all brainless brawling though, as plenty of platformer-style puzzles round out the experience. War is in trouble after he inadvertently caused the end of the world and the destruction of all humanity, which is pretty much the biggest mistake it's possible to make. He's cast into the ruins of Earth to atone for his error by knocking the snot out of hideous demons and self-righteous angels. Along the way, he is stripped of all his supernatural powers, which might make the whole atonement business much more difficult, but also leads to handy RPG-style character progression. Combat forms the meat of proceedings, with War's broadsword, Chaos Eater, taking center stage. Battlefield control and fancy footwork are the order of the day, as mindlessly mashing buttons will, in serious fights at least, see you die in pretty short order. An array of secondary tools and weapons round out the system, including a throwing star that looks like four swords welded together, and an ancient horn that blows enemies off their feet with a powerful bass note. Combat is fast, satisfying, and most importantly, makes you feel powerful, like you're really in control of a half-angel, half-human killing machine. The rest of the game is made up of puzzles, mostly the kind involving running and jumping, as you'd expect, rather than word searches and Sudoku. Most of the puzzles involve pushing switches and navigating increasingly difficult platform sections, as each new piece of equipment that War unlocks on his rampage adds to the complexity of the problems set out in front of you. It's never going to be especially taxing, and everything you need to complete a puzzle is right there in the room with you when you begin any one challenge. But there's a fantastic moment of realization when you finally crack a tricky section. War moves nicely too, bounding around the environment and shattering rock where he lands heavily. For all that though, Darksiders isn't the most original game you'll ever play. Comparisons with fellow mythical brawler God of War are inevitable and not out of place. They share a lot of the same inspiration. Fans of the Legend of Zelda series will also find themselves at home here. The hookshot, the bombs, and the boomerang all make an appearance, and they all do pretty much the same thing for War as they did for Link. It's not that Darksiders is a bad game for taking elements from other successful titles, not by a long shot. It treats them with respect and uses them to make an interesting, if slightly unoriginal, experience. The environments look excellent, taking place in a twisted, half-destroyed version of Earth 100 years after the apocalypse that War so carelessly caused. As such, War runs through city streets, shattered hotels, demonic outposts, and haunted graveyards, all of which look great. The fantastical environments can lead to frustration though, as sometimes architectural concerns are thrown aside in favor of making a given puzzle more difficult. Who builds a security system around four pillars rising and falling out of a pool of lava? Humans, apparently. We must have missed that memo. Strange level design and obvious game mechanics can sit awkwardly with the storyline and occasionally pull you out of the narrative. For all that the combat makes you feel like a sword-wielding behemoth, the standard pattern of fights can get a little repetitive. All too often, War lands in a room surrounded by baddies and must destroy all of them before mystical wards are released and he's allowed to use the door that leads to the next area. The first few times, it's a tense battle to survive by managing the fight as it drags on and making sure our hero doesn't get too battered. But once you hit the 5th or 6th time in a dungeon, it can feel more like a chore than an epic adventure across the ruins of a broken Earth. Professional sheen and chunky combat mechanics managed to save Darksiders from becoming a flash in the pan, although only just. While it's fun to mash your way through hordes of bad guys, the game can get frustrating pretty quickly thanks to samey design and some out-of-place puzzle mechanics. It has its moments, but if you never play it, it won't be the end of the world.